Hello, I'm Craig DeRoche, CEO of Family Policy Alliance. We're thrilled to announce another state has signed a bill into law to save women's sports. The latest state is Nebraska, now marking over half of the United states that have a law to protect women's civil rights. We're also honored that Nebraska Family Alliance, the family policy council in the state, has been a major leader in helping this change take place. Today, we're joined by Nate Grasz, the executive director of the organization. He is the author of Would the Pilgrims Still Come to America Today? Folks, I just love that question. The subhead is the deterring state of American religious liberty. That's why the question is being asked. They also host the Nebraska Family Alliance Report, a weekly statewide radio show podcast, and it's on the Bott Radio Network. Nate is a comer in our movement, very well known, a national leading voice in social conservative politics. Nate, thank you for being on the podcast.
Greg, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, you're an amazing leader, and Nebraska is one of our, they say it's a ruby red state, but that means that there's undercurrents going on when you have one party control, as they say. That doesn't mean your job's any harder. It's in many cases it means it's hard. Easier. It could be harder. You're a young leader. You're new to being the CEO and president, executive director of Nebraska Family Alliance. Tell us, was this an answer to prayer, or was it a circumstance that God brought in your life? How did you end up in this role leading in Nebraska?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So I am a fifth generation Nebraskan, born and raised here. There's a short answer and a long answer to that question. The short answer is just the goodness and faithfulness of God, just very clearly directing my steps and, placing a calling on my life to be a part of this work to help advance family freedom and life. And so I've been serving at Nebraska Family Alliance since 2016 as our policy director, and got to be a part of a lot of amazing things through our ministry and through this movement. And then was privileged to take over as executive director at the beginning of this year. And it's really just an immense opportunity and blessing to get to serve the state of Nebraska and to be a voice for life and for families and partner with FPA. And the longer answer to your question is that, as you mentioned at the beginning, 400 years ago, one of my ancestors forsake a life of great comfort and power and risked his life to sail across the ocean on a wooden ship so that one day his children and their children could worship God freely. And that ship was the Mayflower. His name was William Brewster. He was the head elder for the Pilgrims. And so throughout my life, I've just, thought, about the sacrifices and the faithfulness of those who came before us to preserve and pass down freedom. And, I just think about, how can we do anything less today than to stand firm in our faith, to stand up for our beliefs, and to pass those freedoms down to future generations, because our kids and our children's children are counting on our faithfulness today. And I'm just thankful to get to be a part of the movement with Family Policy Alliance to stand for truth and strengthen families in our state and across the country.
So Nebraska just passed Save Rural Sports. You became a 26th state to do that. And you're a conservative state. You're a one legislative body state. I was a speaker of a house. Michigan has a house and a Senate. You're the only state that has a unicameral legislature. You're the 26th state. That's why I'm asking. And you're a ruby red state. I have you on here for a reason, folks. This is just getting started, and it's becoming comprehensive in states like Nebraska that have their act together more than other states are actually models for us. When they write their Save Rural Sports, when they write their abortion language, sometimes they're experimenting with new policies for us. Tell us about the excitement. I know this was a crescendo, Nate, multi-year approach. Didn't you have like 90,000 people watch a volleyball game or something? I mean, this has been, tell us how you got here. Tell us what the journey of when people work with the Family Policy Council like Nebraska Family How do you go from where people might have 4 years ago said Nebraska doesn't need this to where it becomes a priority?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, some may know actually the world record for the largest ever attended female sporting event took place in Nebraska. Just 2 years ago, we sold out our football stadium to watch a women's volleyball match. The University of Nebraska volleyball team, over 90,000 people. So we love sports in Nebraska. But as you also mentioned, we also have a unicameral legislature, which is really unique. So it's just one house. And so in Nebraska, we have 49 state senators, and that's it. And we also have a very high filibuster threshold. So when a bill is filibustered, in order to advance that bill, we have to get 33 votes out of 49 senators. And it's hard to get 33 people to agree on anything, especially something of substance. And so, as we've seen around the country and here in Nebraska, just a growing concern from parents, from female athletes, of the need to protect girls' sports and spaces. And so a couple of years ago, we saw legislation introduced here, like in other states, to ensure that girls' sports is for girls. It's really simple. It's common sense. But it's not just a debate about sports. Fundamentally, it's a debate about truth. Are there two genders? Can you change your gender? Can a man become a woman? And so very quickly, this issue here, really took on a life of its own. It became very controversial, very heavily debated, and we have to get bills through 3 separate rounds of debate. And so there were filibusters at every round. There were protesters trying to take over the Capitol. And the last couple of years, this bill to save girls' sports had failed. And so there was a lot of uncertainty coming into this year. But I'll tell you what, we never stopped working. We kept praying. We kept talking with legislators. And thankfully, this year, we were finally able to get that bill through with 33 votes exactly, the minimum number we needed. Through all 3 rounds of debate, our governor signed it into law. And now over half the country has taken action to protect girls' sports. And we're very thankful that Nebraska is the latest state to join that list.
I'm talking with Nate Grasz, the president of Nebraska Families, the author of a book that I'm going to ask him about next, about the Mayflower, where his ancestors came from, and would the Pilgrims come? It's about religious liberty, and it is related to what they're celebrating in Nebraska. Nate, tell us about, it's not just about the girls' sports. People came here on the Mayflower for more than that. It was about liberty. Tell us about your hope and what you're seeing at Nebraska Family Now, and why you wrote that book. Maybe while it isn't as good as we think it is, but maybe there's some hope in there that you're trying to point us toward.
Yeah, absolutely. All these issues that we work on, Craig, whether it's protecting girls' sports, standing up for the unborn, strengthening families, the biggest problems in our society today all stem from the same thing. And it's the breakdown of God's design for marriage and family, and a culture that is veering away from biblical truth. And so we see these issues play out in specific contexts like girls' sports and with bills in our legislature. But fundamentally, these aren't just political issues. These are moral issues. These are biblical issues. And so we need to be speaking out on these. And, when I wrote my book about the Pilgrims and coming to America, it was really looking at the story of the Pilgrims, before they even set sail on the Mayflower, and the opposition that they faced from those in government and in culture, and that they were willing to make those sacrifices to follow their beliefs and to raise their children according to their beliefs without being punished by their own government. And we know the story of the Pilgrims and coming over on the Mayflower. But I think if you look, at some of the things they went through before that, we could kind of start to see this parallel to where things were shifting in our own country today. The growing hostility to people of faith, both in government and in culture. But since I wrote that book, a few years ago, I have been so encouraged because the body of Christ, has just responded in amazing ways across the country. Here in Nebraska, we're seeing more people engaging with our government officials, more people speaking out on cultural events, more people praying, more people voting, and we're seeing that impact. Right? I mean, even a few years ago, it would have been unimaginable to see some of the things we're seeing today, how our culture has shifted on the LGBT issue, where people are no longer afraid, to say that, no, there are only two genders. A man cannot become a woman. Life does begin at conception and should be protected. And so there's been, I think, a lot of really tremendous progress that has been made recently that gives us hope for the future.
And it's the future that we're focused on, folks. Unfortunately, God is not giving Family Policy Alliance or Nebraska Family a time machine. All of our families have endured violence, addiction. I talk about that quite freely in my own injustice. But America has offered us a hope of being the king. Yes, we do have kings in America. You're talking to two of them right here. We own our country and we own our states and our school districts, all of us. Everybody listening, you are a king. That's the joke. I understand that there's some political stuff going on right now, but the point of America is that it's our country. Nate, you and I both know the parable of the talents, or the bags of gold. We've already been given all of the power. And Nate, I'm going to break news with you right now. We partnered with a couple of big data firms. I'm not going to name them here, but they matched our data. Nate, we worked with Nebraska Family and the other family policy councils in the 2024 election, folks. And we tried to educate Christians to vote in the election because we don't vote at a higher percentage than anybody else. People that take Medicaid, welfare, you name it, government, pork, they vote as much or more than Christians. And the whole point was to pray, vote, engage, and get you out there. Nate, we did a survey, scientifically cross-referenced, because your voting record is not who you voted for, but your voting record of whether or not you voted is public. And we found that we had a between 92 and 93% turnout, Nate. It's just stunning. I keep reaching for my phone to call Chuck Colson, my former boss, who was the architect of the 72 election where Republicans, the social conservatives of the time, won 49 out of 50 states. It was because of the turnout. And that's what we're getting back to, Nate. Tell the folks about your hope now that you're seeing, you say the fear dissipating. I think that's what the evil one wanted. He wanted Christian families afraid to speak up at school boards, afraid to call the teacher back and saying, I don't want you teaching that to my kid, afraid of telling the police officers you can't do that on my property. But we're overcoming that. Is that a good thing? Tell me, am I being too dramatic here? Are we overcoming that, or are we returning to those values of the Mayflower that maybe your ancestors were pursuing?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Craig. I mean, we're getting back to those foundational values and roots that our country was built on, which is the truth of God's word and God's design for marriage and family. Right. Part of following, Jesus, we're not promised or guaranteed political victories or success or popularity, but God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And if the people who have been given the truth, aren't willing to speak it, who is? And what an immense privilege that we have, as believers at this moment in history to get to stand for truth. And, Augustine had a great quote that the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it, let it loose and it can defend itself. And so, we're able to enter into these spaces to help people step into these conversations and issues, both with courage and with grace, to speak up, to speak the truth. And it matters because ideas have consequences, and bad ideas and bad laws also have victims. And we have the calling to be salt and light in our culture. And that's what I love about what we're doing at Nebraska Family Alliance, what Family Policy Alliance is doing is, not just influencing government and passing bills, which we are, which is exciting. But we're also helping to transform culture and change hearts and minds. And that's really how we continue to move the ball forward by, having these conversations, by providing the data, by equipping and inspiring people to be engaged with what we're doing and the calling that we all have.
So Nate, there's several hundred people that are listening to this right now. I know that because there's always several hundred people that listen to these. Sometimes the podcasts are shared more often. Folks, I want you to share this podcast for what Nate is going to say next. Why people don't trust the newspapers. They don't trust the political parties. They don't trust the cable news shows they used to like. It appears everything has gone to who's ever advertising. Paying the most is what the truth is that day. But they get a different experience from a family policy council. So this is not just Nebraska, Nate. Tell the audience the so what. Why did 850,000 people last year say, I used to read the newspaper, I used to use the political party, now I go to Nebraska Family Alliance or the one in my state? Why did that happen? That's where we're going to wrap up today, because I want everybody, when you're done with this podcast today, we'll do a wind down, but I want you to share this and we're going to get you involved in the state where you live. Tell them why, Nate.
Yeah. So it's true of Nebraska Family Alliance. It's true of the Family Policy Council in your state, wherever you're listening. We're not holding the line for a political party or a political candidate. We're holding the line for families and for biblical truth. We are leading with courage, with conviction, rooted in the truths of the gospel. We are working to provide our state and our nation with solutions to the challenges and problems that we're facing that ultimately reflect the hope of the gospel. That's what grounds us, and that's what separates us. Is we're not just doing what we're doing for ourselves. We're doing it for our kids and for the future generation. We've been given, so many freedoms and privileges in this country. But those freedoms and privileges have been fought for. And we have to continue to do that today. And so that's why we're working at our state capitol. We have real relationships with lawmakers. We're there to help shepherd them. We're pulling in, churches and pastors from across the state and building those bridges and forming those coalitions that can make a real difference, where we're not just reporting on what's happening, but we're actually influencing what's happening at our capitol, at your local school board meeting, and even in the halls of Congress. But what we can do together as the unified body of Christ is far greater than anything that we can do alone. But we're providing, really timely resources, action alerts, prayer initiatives, so many ways that people can engage, become informed and equipped to make a difference for their family and in their community.
It's an amazing opportunity. We hope that you will take Nate's words and take them directly into your heart, and that you will take action after, not before, but after you pray on that and ask God what he would have you do. That is how we work here. We want to do God's will, not our own. We get frustrated with the world, the same as you, but we have been blessed. You've heard that in Nate's words. You've heard it in mine, and I assure you that you will experience it if you work with Family Policy Alliance or any of our family policy councils. We yearn to be in sync with the Spirit. And that is why we have had just such supernatural growth and so many people joining our ranks. We hope that you will join today. Click below on these links. We're going to refer you out to Nebraska Family as well, and to the groups in your state. I know that everybody in our audience is good at math. So when I say we have 40 state policy conferences, you're all thinking, wait a second, maybe I'm exposed. That could be true. 10 states do not have an organization like the one Nate runs. We want to have one in your state. You can reach out to me directly through the email line here if you want to get one started in your state. As I have mentioned, Colorado jumped to action. Dozens of churches and political leaders are forming a new organization right now. They are one of the 10 states where we didn't have an active group. We need you. Join us. Nate, it represents a new breed of leaders that are growing in our impact. You'll know it by its fruit, folks. Thank you for being with us these last several years. We've gotten to half of the country. That's why we had Nate on today. We're tipping the scales to 26 states with Nebraska, but there's so much further to go. Please join Family Policy Alliance. Until we see you again, blessings to you. Thanks again, Nate, for being with us today.